Hello, and welcome to the American Crisis Prevention and Management Association Neonatal Resuscitation and Advanced Life Support course. For the transition from intrauterine to extrauterine life can be successful, certain physiologic adaptation ought to take place successfully in a neonate. Some changes take place long time after birth and must be necessitated by resuscitation. Research proves that 90% of all infants' physiologic changes are successfully completed at delivery without requiring any special assistance. However, about 9% of infants will need some intervention and 1% will require extensive resuscitative measures at birth. You are taking this course so you can help the 10% that require medium to extensive intervention. Birth asphyxia causes most neonatal deaths. Birth asphyxia is defined as failure to initiate and sustain breathing at birth. The medical team conducting the delivery of the infant should be on the alert for an emergency tray to conduct the resuscitation whenever birth asphyxia happens. Resuscitation is a life-saving procedure that, if not conducted, a high mortality rate of the infants will be recorded. It is necessary that the resuscitation procedure be done in the correct way. Poor resuscitation procedure can complicate the already compromised respiratory system. Recommendation on basic newborn resuscitation. The degree of asphyxia differs from one newborn to another. There are leading cues on how long the infant needs the resuscitation. Not all the newborns with asphyxia at birth have the same strength of recommendation for resuscitation. The leading cues that indicate extent of asphyxia are 5. These cues are checked on the newborn soon after birth. First, the midwife conducting delivery should assess the mother if she reached the expected date of delivery. 1. Prematurity. If the baby is born prematurely, it is more likely that the baby will need resuscitation. If the infant is born prematurely, then resuscitation begins by delaying the cord clamping. The clamping of the cord should not be done earlier than 1 minute after birth. Delay in the clamping of the cord is to allow the exchange of oxygenated blood between the mother and the infant. Exceptions in the delay of cord clamping is when the baby is a preterm infant and needs positive airway ventilation on the resuscitation. 2. Baby fails to cry. A second indication is when the infant delays to cry spontaneously immediately after birth. The first-line resuscitation procedure on such scenario calls for drying of the infant and stimulation by rubbing the back of the infant. The rubbing should be 2 to 3 times before clamping the cord. Then, a positive airway ventilation should be initiated until the infant can breathe spontaneously. 3. Amniotic fluid swallowing. The third indication is when the infant is born in clear amniotic fluid. Many infants swallow the amniotic fluid and later compromise the respiratory system. Infants with amniotic fluids in the respiratory system should undergo suctioning of nostril first, then proceed to the mouth. Care needs to be taken when suctioning the mouth since it can stimulate the vagal nerve and complicate the asphyxia. Suctioning of the upper respiratory system and mouth is to make the respiratory system patent. Consequently, the infant will be able to breathe freely without obstructions by amniotic fluids. If successful, the cardiopulmonary resuscitation can proceed after ensuring the airway is patent. The compression and mechanical ventilation cannot be done unless all fluids are removed. 4. Stained meconium. The fourth indication for infant resuscitation is an infant born in meconium-stained amniotic fluid. The strength of recommendation for resuscitation is very strong on this scenario. However, the intrapartum suctioning of the mouth and nose of the infant is not recommended. In case the suctioning is done, the baby may delay to be delivered, resulting in more compromised respiratory problems. 5. Born in meconium-stained amniotic fluid but is breathing. The fifth cue is an exception for the baby born in meconium-stained amniotic fluid but initiates spontaneous breathing. In such scenario, the tracheal suctioning is not recommended. Spontaneous breathing is indicative of adequate respiratory efforts and the airway is patent. The infant will free the amniotic fluids by coughs and crying. However, tracheal suctioning should be done to the infants born in meconium-stained amniotic fluid and cannot initiate spontaneous breathing. Positive pressure ventilation should be next performing the suctioning.